and say a good evening again. Welcome to the Maryland Envirothon Soils Training for our virtual competition this year. Our presenters this evening are Miss Rossi Gill and Jim Brewer, who are both soil scientists with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So I want to thank you, Annie and Jim, for all your dedication to the Envirothon. Thank you for being here and presenting tonight. And I will turn it over to you now.
All right, thanks, April. So we're going to get started. I'm going to make sure that, did that advance the slide for you, April?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, great. All right, so today we're going to go over a few things in preparation for the soils part of the Maryland Envirothon. I'm going to go over some of the available training resources. Hopefully you've found all of those online on the Envirothon website and the YouTube videos. I'm also going to go over the format for the virtual contest this year. And then we should have plenty of time at the end for any questions you've got as you've started to prepare. And like April said, feel free to put something in the chat as soon as you think of a question. And if we can stop, we'll do so then. First thing I just also want to mention, just as a little incentive, the Mid-Atlantic Association of Professional Soil Scientists, or MAPS, which is the professional organization for soil scientists in Maryland and Delaware, they offer a $250 prize to the team that scores the highest on the soils portion of the Envirothon. So, you know, reason to work hard on soils. All right. So the training resources, some of these are new this year, and some of them have been there. So if you've participated before, you might already be familiar with them. The first one we've got is the Soil Study Guide, and that's the picture of the cover of it right there. And it's kind of a long document, but it really covers all the information that you really need to know for the soils portion of the Envirothon. And then there's an abbreviated version of that, this exam guidance document. And so that's kind of a shorter version, kind of the Cliff Notes. We really recommend you go through that. It goes through the entire scorecard, the different options, and then anything you have questions on, if you refer to that soil study guide, you'll get kind of more detailed information on it. We also have a number of different reference guides. We've got one on drainage classes, how to estimate soil texture by feel, using a clinometer, and then the different soil structures. And some of those guides you'll also be using during the contest this year. All right, and now we've got the videos, and these are all new this year. We've got a whole bunch of videos. They're on the YouTube channel and linked on the website, and they go through really everything that's going to be in the contest. So I think those should be really helpful as you're preparing. Hopefully you've watched all of them, and any questions you have, we can follow up on that tonight. All right, and then one last thing that we don't have available yet, but is going to be up probably in about a week and a half to 2 weeks, is we're going to have some practice questions. We know that with this virtual contest, it's going to be a little bit different than what you're used to, or maybe what we've done in the past where you're in a soil pit. So we want to kind of help you get a little bit accustomed to what these questions are going to look like. So we're going to have kind of a mini practice test that you can take. All right, Jim, did you have anything you wanted to add about the training resources that are available?
No, it's all good.
All right. All right, so this year for the contest, it's going to be virtual. For soils, there will be 2 sections, and the videos kind of follow the same format. So watching those videos will give you a good idea of what parts of the contest are where. So section 1, this is the landscape and soil profile features, and you're going to have 80 minutes to do this part of the test. And it's broken into 3 sections, but we don't have separate times for those separate sections. It's just kind of a way to help you organize the content. So part A is landscape features. You're going to use photos and diagrams that we give you of the area immediately surrounding the soil pit, And that's where you're going to be answering the questions about landscape position, parent material, slope, rock outcrops, same things that are covered in the Part A video. Part B is the soil profile features. So that's where you're going to be using photos that we've given you of the soil profile, and we'll also have some videos, and you'll answer the questions about specific soil properties. And then Part C is the soil and site interpretations. So this is where you're going to use the information that you learned in basically Parts A and Parts B of the contest, and you're going to make some interpretations about the site and the soil for agriculture, urban development, and for wildlife habitat. So we're going to be giving you the pictures and diagrams to use, and it'll be kind of up to you and your team to look at all the photos and try to figure out the answers to these questions. Most of the pictures and everything, you're going to have one set of pictures that you can look at throughout the whole test. But for a few questions, we're going to refer you to a specific photo because we really want you to focus on something specific. And we'll also have some reference photos and diagrams that you'll be able to look at. So those would include soil structure, the different examples of soil structure, estimating rock fragment content, and then the flow chart that we use for estimating soil or for determining soil texture. So you'll have those guides that you can refer to, and they'll be in the platform when you're taking the contest or when you're taking the test. So just a recommendation, since for Part C, you're going to need your answers from Part A and B, you will be able to look at your answers the whole time when you're going through the test. But if you want to avoid having to scroll all the way back to the beginning to look at your answers in Part A, it would be really helpful if you have a copy of the scorecard or just take notes while you're working on Parts A and B, and then you can quickly refer back to your answers when you're doing Part C. Just a suggestion. Section 2 is on soil survey use. And for Section 2, you're going to have 40 minutes. If you've watched the video on using web soil survey for Section 2, you're going to have this scenario where you have a parcel of land that you're looking for information about the soils, and you'll use web soil survey to answer some questions we've given you. So you'll open up web soil survey as you're taking the test and answer the questions. So just a little bit about preparing for Section 1. So usually when we have an in-person contest, you kind of know where you're going and know what part of the state you're in. Since you're not going anywhere this year, we're telling you where the soil pit is. So the contest this year, our virtual location is in Prince George's County, Maryland. And so that's on the coastal plain in Maryland. Sorry. Oops. Sorry, I think my computer froze a little bit. All right, there we go. So let me go back here. All right. April, are you on the preparing for Section 1 slide?
Yep, that's what we see.
Okay, good. Sorry, kind of a little bit of a glitch on my end, but I think we're good now. All right, so like I said, the contest location is Prince George's County, Maryland, which is on the coastal plain. Just a little bit of background for you. The Atlantic coastal plain, it's a broad, relatively flat region along the east coast of the United States. Many of the soils in this area are derived from what we call coastal plain sediments. So these are, marine deposited sediments. So as sea level rise went up and down over time, at various points, this portion of the coastal plain, might have been underwater or, had these water deposits. And these are unconsolidated sediments, meaning they have not been cemented into bedrock. So when you think about the soils that we see on the coastal plain, most of the upland areas, or really all the upland soils on the coastal plain are derived from these coastal plain sediments. Along the streams and rivers, we'll also find soils that might have alluvial deposits. So this is something you want to be thinking about when you're thinking about what the parent material might be at the during the contest. All right, so now I'm going to just go through some quick examples of what some of the questions will look like in section 1. So this is an example, and this is not the soil that will be in the for the contest. This is another soil profile picture, but you'll have a soil profile picture like this. There will be a tape measure in there. This one happens to be in centimeters. For the contest, we're going to be using inches, but you'll be able to read it off the tape measure, and we'll actually have the tape measure and the pictures will have 1-inch increments. So you'll be able to make more precise measurements. So this is from part B, the soil profiles features, and this is question 1. And it's asking you to check the major soil horizons visible in the profile. And so you'll want to look at the soil profile and see which horizons you can pick out. So in this example, first of all, we've got an A horizon. We can see this dark surface at the top, and an A horizon, that's a mineral horizon, has an organic, has accumulations of organic matter. So that's why it's got that dark brown color. And another thing I'll just point out about this A horizon, you can see it's got a really abrupt boundary here, right? It changes quickly between that dark color to the more reddish color. And that's right at about 27 centimeters or roughly 10 inches. And this is actually a plow layer. So as this field was tilled and that topsoil was turned over for agricultural purposes, we developed that really abrupt boundary. And that boundary can be a really good way to recognize the depth of the topsoil, is kind of seeing that very quick transition. And so this A horizon, again, is the topsoil or surface horizon. We also see this zone down here that's redder in color. It also looks a bit, denser, kind of because it has more clay. And there's a change in structure. You can kind of see in the topsoil horizon, it's maybe smaller peds, whereas they look kind of different shape, more blocky, some more angular peds in that B horizon. So this is our B horizon. So in this example, we've got an A and a B. So if you were answering this question, you'd be looking at the colors, maybe changes in structure that you can see. And that's kind of how you're going to pick out those different horizons. Right, and just another thing, it's not part of this question, but it is something you'll need to do. If you look down in this lower part of the subsoil, you see these gray colors in here. Remember, those are redox depletions. So that's another thing when you're looking at these profile pictures that you're going to want to be looking at is the different colors you see. So, one of the questions we'll have is asking about drainage class and what depth you see depletions. So that's kind of what you're going to be looking for.
Annie, we have a question in the chat. Would the O horizon be significantly darker than A?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. So an O horizon is usually very black in color because an O horizon is completely organic matter, whereas an A horizon is a mineral horizon but has a lot of organic matter. So sometimes A horizons can be very dark, but a lot of times they are more this brownish color. Whereas I think you can, if it's an O horizon, it's going to be really, really dark, basically black in color. You're going to be able to see, it's going to be more of an organic, you won't see distinct plant fragments, but you'll see that decomposed plant material. And those are usually, you're going to see, if you've got a O horizon, we would probably be in a wetter environment or possibly in woods as well, depending on the site. Does that answer that question? Hopefully. All right, well.
I believe so.
All right.
Yes, it does, absolutely.
Great. All right, so so you can kind of see in this question how I use that picture to pick out the different horizons and then identify what they were. So the next question asks, what is the current topsoil thickness? So that would be the thickness of the O and A horizons. So I just put a scale bar on here so you could see a little more clearly how you'd make a measurement. But we're going to have, like I said, a tape measure that has 1 inch increments, so you'll be able to make those determinations. You won't have to guess between large gaps like here. And I think April mentioned it in the chat that the pictures will be large and you can zoom in on them, or you can download them and zoom in as much as you need to. So let's see here. So I think this one's pretty obvious where this boundary between the A and the B is. So like I said, we're looking for topsoil thickness. So where's the bottom of that A? And I've put a dashed line here so you could kind of see it. I guess it's around 27, 28 inches, or 27 or 28 centimeters, sorry. And just a reminder, when you're taking these measurements, be sure to take it as close as possible to the tape measure. You'll notice on this one, it's not super wavy, but sometimes depending on where you're looking across the profile, the boundary might be at a different depth. So where we're going to be looking is right next to the tape measure. So that's where you want to be taking your measurement as well. All right. Just another sample question here. This is also from part B. One of the things we, talked about is soil pH. We can't have you all doing soil pH yourself. So what we did is we tested the soil pH on a sample from this site that we got all the pictures from. And we're going to show you a picture after it's reacted. And we'll also give you the color chart so you can determine what the pH is. In this sample, there's a few different soil samples in here, and you can see the pH of these probably range from around 8 to maybe about 4.5 or so here. But in the contest, you'll only be looking at one sample, and they'll all be the same. So hopefully that gives you a little idea of what to expect in terms of the type, how we're going to use pictures to answer the questions. But we've really designed it so it's going to be, the questions are all going to be the same as what we would do for an in-person contest. You'll be relying on pictures and video rather than actually being there yourself. So just a couple of reminders and tips when you're working on section 1. The soil, I think I just already mentioned this, but the soil profile landscape videos that you need will be available as a separate link. So you'll be able to open it and refer to it throughout the test. So you definitely want to look through them all at the beginning, but then be sure to be going back to them and don't just try to remember what it looked like. Look back at them for every question. You want to take notes, or we can put a blank scorecard on the website that you can download, and you can kind of keep track of your answers as you go. So then you can refer to them when you get to part C, the interpretations part. Some of these questions we are asking you to look at the colors. So you might need to adjust your computer monitor settings just to help you see the different colors and the contrast between horizons. We've kind of been opening them up, looking at these photos on different computers, so we kind of see how variable they can be. So adjusting your settings might help, but we do know that everybody's monitor is going to be a little bit different. So we're considering that when we're determining the range of answers we're going to look for, that we're going to accept. And I think this probably goes for all of the, all the parts of the Envirothon this year. But before you start, you definitely want to plan how your team is going to be able to look at the photos and the videos and the diagrams together, whether you're all in one place or if you're at your separate houses working on this. You want to make sure everybody can see the pictures and work together on it. All right, does anyone have any questions about section 1 before I go on to section 2? Or if Jim had anything else he wanted to add?
No, you covered it all real well.
Okay. I think, hey, April, this might be a question better for you to answer.
Yeah, so the question is the test taken on one computer or can teammates all log in? The answer is yes and yes. The short answer is we will ask the team captain to submit the answers to the test using one computer and their login, but all team members will be able to log in and see the test on their own. We do ask that you log in at the same time, so you're looking at it at the same time and working as a team to complete the test. But the one person submitting the answers will be the team captain on behalf of the entire team. So instead of submitting 5 tests, you'll submit 1 for the captain, but every member will have access to see the test. It's important to get that associate account created if you haven't already. I'll drop a link into the chat that gives you the directions to do that, because that is what will give you the access. So as long as you, as a team member, have created that associate's account, you will gain access to the test. And it's absolutely important the captain does it because, again, they're submitting the test for you.
Thanks, April. All right, so we'll go on to section 2. And section 2 is where we're using web soil survey. And this is one part of the soils Envirothon contest that we really did not have to change at all to go virtual. So for this, you're using web soil survey online. So you'll go to the link and you'll answer the different questions. Preparing for this one, really, it might be kind of obvious, but just practice using web soil survey. Open up the website, go to the website, look up your county, select a few soil series, try navigating to the different tables. In the video, I pointed out a few of the different reports, so make sure you can find those, but also just open up some of the other tables just so you can kind of get familiar with the information that's available. The more comfortable you are using soil survey, it's just going to make this section easier for you. All right, and that's everything I had for tonight. So, I'm happy to take any questions you guys have as you've started to prepare. What you're still trying to understand or questions about the test, we can just open it up. And I think, April, there's a question about elms.
Yes, I was just typing a response, but
okay.
It's a good point to answer it live. So there's a question about the Elms and FFA. So if you are competing in the state CDE contest for FFA, and you have thus already created an associate's account, there is no reason to, there's nothing else you need to do at this point. If anything, you just want to make sure that the Envirothon has the same email address that you used for your FFA, that's the same one you sent to Envirothon. Because what we'll do is once you create the associate's account, in a week or so, hopefully most people will have the accounts created by tomorrow, but I know spring breaks. So we're going to give a little bit of leeway for those who need it. But once those accounts are created, I have to go in and pull everyone into the class and into the test. So I need to make sure I know who you are by your name and your email. So that's why you had to submit them to us. That's the only reason we're using your emails, is to communicate with you and pull you into that class. And the associate's account will expire 3 months after you create the account and don't use it. So the university won't keep it either. It will disappear. But the CDE contest, if you're already doing that or you're in Elms for any other reason, right now, you do not have to create a new account.
All right. And it looks like there's a question about how to measure slope on a computer. So what we're going to do for this one, for the slope question, we're going to show you some pictures of the landscape and where the slope stakes are. And we're basically going to show you the view of the inside of the clinometer. So you'll be able to kind of look at that schematic diagram to read slope. So make sure you understand how to read the inside of the clinometer. Okay. All right, and there's, I think, another question about Elms.
So no, if you used a different email account for FFA than you gave to Envirothon, easiest thing to do is just, I'll put my email address in the chat. Just email me and let me know that what email address you did use for FFA. It's just, it'll be easier for me to just use that email than have you create a whole second account. If you don't mind, if you're really worried about that, then yes, you can go ahead and make a second associates account. That's fine.
Right. And then there's a question, are we looking at the soil texture from two different areas in the soil profile? And if so, will their differences be significant? And is there a specific way we should contrast them? So for the soil texture question, we have some videos that'll kind of walk you through the process of texturing, and you'll be using the flow chart. So you won't actually be touching the soil, but you'll kind of get a description of that process, and you'll use that to assign the texture class. And as to whether they're going to be significant differences, that's kind of up to you to determine while you're watching these videos. And so, yeah, I think I'll just say you're going to use these videos, and that'll help you decide how different they are and if they're contrasting or they're the same. That's kind of part of what you have to figure out. Will we need to know the different scientific names for soil like andesol or entisol? No, we're not doing soil taxonomy as part of this contest.
Yeah, Annie, you're right about the texture. The two things that we can give them is that most of the time, particularly with the flow chart that we're allowed to use, it's the length of that ribbon that's being made, and that's going to be demonstrated not only in the training, but for the contest, and then the grittiness, how gritty it is or how smooth it is, which relates to that flow chart. So if they listen to it carefully in the training and the contest video, then they should have no problem coming up with the correct answer.
Yep, thanks. Will land management and the land capability classes be on the test? Yes. Yep, that's part of part C.
Yeah, again, just reiterating that we've said for the last 30 years, part A plus part B equals part C in the contest in that first section. And I think it's a great idea that they have maybe a hard copy of the scorecard in front of them, whether they're all together or whether they're individually at their own computer, to jot down as they make those determinations, those answers for A and B, to be able to look back at them to answer the questions and see which is the land capability and the land management. We probably ought to think about maybe doing that for an in-person contest also.
Yeah, well, I guess in person they have their scorecard as their.
But they don't always talk to each other.
That's true. All right. Thanks for putting that link in there, April. And then the next question is, how do you determine the parent material of a soil without feeling it? So, you're going to be looking at, the soil profile and what you can see in it. If you've got bedrock present, that maybe that soil is developing from, it's a residual soil developing from the bedrock. Do you see stratification in the soil? That might indicate it's a flood deposit or, an alluvial deposit. Colluvium, we're usually looking, it's not stratified, it's all mixed. So you might see angular rock fragments that are going all different directions. And usually colluvium, those rock the rock fragments will be very angular. Whereas if it's an alluvial deposit where it's, it's deposited by water, usually the rocks are more rounded. If you think about like rocks that get rounded in a stream versus ones that just roll down a hill, like, they're different shapes. You can also be looking at the landscape position to help you with parent material. Depending on where you are in the landscape, you're going to associate it with certain parent material types. If you're, on a floodplain, you're going to be expecting to have an alluvial deposit. Whereas if you're in an upland, you shouldn't be calling it recent alluvium because those two don't match up. Okay. Yeah, we're definitely relying a lot on visual clues for this contest. Are there any other questions? All right. What is the difference between value and chroma? They look similar. All right, well, so value is light to dark, and chroma is kind of brightness. So when you're looking, actually, here we go. So I'm looking at the color chart here. We've got value kind of goes from my low values here to high value at the top. And you can see if you look within each of these columns, the ones down here are darker than the ones up here. They're much lighter. And then when I go across in each of these rows, that's my chroma. So my low chroma to, oh, sorry, should have.
I did that, Annie. I'm sorry. So you could see the picture.
Yeah. No, I forgot that I was still sharing the screen. So as you go across with your chroma, they're getting brighter. Hopefully you can see that okay. But so so you're kind of looking within each of these rows going across, you've got kind of a dull color here. And then as you get higher chroma, they get brighter or more pigmented. So it's kind of the strength of the pigment when you're talking about color, and then light to, or dark to light as you talk about value. And so then when we give the notation, it's hue, which is the notation on the tab here, so 10YR, and then we give our value, which is the number here, and then the chroma going across.
I can't believe you had your color book right there behind you.
I know, that worked out really well, right? It's almost like I planted the question. All right. Any other questions?
I guess I could just say that they should know they have a lot of time for this contest compared to what we do in real life, which is like a half an hour versus, what are we talking, 120 minutes, 2
Yeah,
hours?
2 hours.
But, you know, as far as the soil survey questions, again, the more that they go on to the website and practice it, it will come really fast. And just to double check your answers when it comes to something like that. If they don't make sense, there's a problem, because they should make all sense on what table you get them from, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in section 1, we kind of harp on this a lot, but really just making sure, you know, that your answers agree with themselves. So if you called it something in part A, make sure you're using that same information all the way through. It's, important to agree with yourself. You don't want to get it right, but then use the wrong number later on when you're making your interpretations. Everybody's ready. They know
I
everything.
think so.
Good job, Annie. You covered it all.
Yeah. Done.
Very prepared group. That's exciting. Any other questions from the audience?
And if additional questions come up later, like we can figure out a way to maybe post, questions and answers if they come in later, to make sure everybody gets access to everything.
Yeah, we can provide some document on the soils section of the website.
Right.
If anything pops up, but you guys covered a lot, and I think you must have answered everyone's questions, and this is the only soils training, so that's exciting. And this video will be available online shortly.
April, do you want me to put my email address in the chat, or would you should they contact you? And then I'm just thinking, instead of them going to you and then sending it to me, do you want me to just give it to them? Or what's the better way?
Just trying to think of, why don't we keep it through me, only because
Okay.
I've been emailing everyone, and then when I send out the next email, I can let them know. So most of you should have received an email from me with some instructions on setting up the associate's account and training. If not, ask your coach, teacher, mentor, whomever, because I've likely contacted them trying to get an email address from you that would work. And I'll be following up with some additional information as we get closer to the contest. So we are using the University of Maryland Elms platform, which is our Canvas platform. I'm April. I didn't introduce myself earlier, but I work at the University of Maryland in our College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, and I serve on the State Envirothon Committee with these wonderful people, Annie, Jim, and Barry Birch, who's in the chat. So I'm coordinating the virtual contest, so to speak, a lot this year. So you can contact me at any point with questions, and I can get you in touch with any of our resource people, or get the questions answered and get them back to you, or on our FAQ document, which is also connected to our website. You should be able to view our FAQs on the website about the virtual contest. there's no other questions about soils, I am going to end the recording and say thank you to Annie and Jim for being here tonight, and to all of you being in the audience. I know it's still spring break for some of you, so we appreciate you being here and joining us. And like I said, this video will be on the website along with the wonderful training videos that Annie and Jim put together with other members of our team to really help teach you some of these skills and how to work through. We know it's not the same as being in person, but we look forward to most of you continuing with us next year in some capacity, or hopefully going on to a college if you're graduating that offers you the chance to dig in a soil pit or take a soils class or things to get the hands-on side of this. So we really appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end the recording.